Greetings children. Today we are going to study the second lesson, Bringing Up Kari. This is for class 7 CBC students. This is an interesting story about an elephant and its intimacy with the narrator. Let us check the main points of part 1. Kari, a month-old baby elephant, lives and grows up with his 9-year-old friend and keeper. So this story is about an 5-month-old baby elephant and his keeper. Keeper here means his mahout. Their intimacy is brought out in the story, Bringing Up Kari. Kari does not eat much, just about 16 kilograms of delicious sticks a day. Very humorously, the narrator says that this baby elephant Kari does not eat much, but he needs around 16 kilograms of delicious sticks every day. He is playful and sensitive, and Kari saves a boy from drowning. So this is what we are going to learn from this story, Bringing Up Kari. Let us move on to the story. Kari the elephant was 5 months old when he was given to me to take care of. When this narrator got this baby elephant, he was only 5 months old, and I was 9 years old, and I could reach his back if I stood on tiptoe. The height of both of them are somewhat same, and the narrator was a boy of 9 years old. And if he stood on his tiptoes, tiptoes means if he stretched up his maximum, and he would reach back of the elephant, which means that both of them have the same height when the narrator got this baby elephant for taking care of. He seemed to remain that high for nearly 2 years. The narrator says us that this baby elephant remained at the same height for around 2 years. We grew together. The reason for making such a reference is both of them grew together. The pace of growth was same with the baby elephant and the narrator. So both of them grew at the same pace or at the same amount. That is probably why I never found out just how tall he was. That was the probability. He couldn't find out the height of the elephant was increasing gradually during these 2 years, because he, along with the elephant, grows. So he couldn't understand the difference between both. He lived in a pavilion. Look at the picture of the pavilion. He lived in a pavilion, a shed-like structure, an elephant shed, under a thatched roof, and its roof was thatched one. Dried coconut leaf is used to made its roof, which rested on thick tree stems, and the roof was set on thick tree stems so that it could not fall in when Kari bumped against the poles as he moved about. The poles of this pavilion were very strong because this Kari used to bump against the poles. Bumped means rubbed against. When he moved away from it and came into the pavilion, he used to rub against or bumped against. these poles. So as poles, they used thick tree stems, so it could not easily fall. Look at the next paragraph. One of the first things Kari did was to save the life of a boy. One important thing that Kari did in his life was he saved the life of a boy. Kari did not eat much, but nevertheless needed 40 pounds of ticks a day to chew and play with. Even though humorously the narrator tells us that he did not eat much, but nevertheless he needed 40 pounds, around 60 kilograms of ticks a day. Ticks means the tender branches of a tree. The tender branches of trees is known as ticks a day for chew and play with. Most of it he used it to eat, and some of it he used it to play with. Every day I used to take him to the river in the morning for his bath. This is the routine. Every day the narrator took this Kari, baby elephant, to the river for bathing. He would lie down on the sandbank while I rubbed him with the clean sand of the river for an hour. This little baby elephant lay down on the bank of the river, the sand bank of the river, something like a cushion bed. He lay down there for an hour. And during this 1 hour, the narrator used it to rub his body, rub his skin, both sides and everywhere, with the sands, the golden sands of the river. That was the bathing process. After that, he would lie in the water for a long time. 1 hour he used it to rub his body, rub his skin to make it clean. And even after that 1 hour, this baby elephant used to lie in the river for a long time. On coming out, his skin would be shining like ebony. When he came out of the river, his skin would shine like a ebony tree, something like the color of coal. The ebony tree, it shines. That is very interesting to watch. When he came out of the river, his body began to shine like an ebony, and he would squeal. And he started squealing. Squealing means the trumpeting, the crying. He started producing sound. This action is called the tiptoe. If he stood on his tiptoes, he reached up to the back of the elephant. Then he trumpeted with pleasure as I rubbed water down his neck. When he rubbed water down his neck, he used it to trumpet, squeal with pleasure. Then I would take him by the ear, because that is the easiest way to lead an elephant, and leave him on the edge of the jungle while I went into the forest to get some luscious ticks for his dinner. Then I would take him by the ear, because that is the easiest way to lead an elephant. According to the narrator, the easiest way to lead an elephant is by holding on his ear. So he led him on the edge of the jungle. Edge means on the brim of the jungle, the forest. While I went into the forest to get some luscious ticks. Luscious means tasty and sweety ticks for his dinner. So after the bathing process, he left this baby elephant at the edge of the jungle or the forest. He went into the forest for collecting or cutting the ticks for his dinner. One has to have a very sharp hatchet to cut down these ticks. So collecting or cutting these ticks is not an easy job according to the narrator. One has have a very sharp hatchet. You know what is a hatchet? Hatchet is the instrument with which he cut the ticks. To cut down these ticks, it takes half an hour to sharpen the hatchet. Actually, he took around half an hour to sharpen the hatchet. Why he wanted to sharpen the hatchet? Because if a twig is mutilated means disfigured or crushed at the cutting edge. If he apply 2 cuttings for one branch to make down, if a twig is mutilated, an elephant will not touch it. Come to the next paragraph. It was not an easy job to get twigs and saplings for Kari. So the narrator says it was not an easy job to get twigs and saplings. Saplings means the little plants for Kari. I had to climb all kinds of trees to get the most delicate and tender twigs. This narrator had to climb up several trees to collect the best twigs. They are delicate and tender. Delicate means tasty and tender means very young twigs. Look at this. As he was very fond of young branches of the banyan tree, which grows like a cathedral of leaves and branches. This banyan tree, the narrator says us that something like a cathedral, something like a church with all its leaves and branches. The banyan tree resembles a cathedral. He climbed up that banyan tree every day for getting sweety, delicate branches. I was gathering some one spring day in March. While he was collecting these branches from the banyan tree one spring day in March, when I suddenly heard Kari calling to me. Immediately he heard that Kari was making sound. He was calling the narrator in the distance, and the voice was coming from a distance. He was making noise. As he was still very young, the call was more like that of a baby than an elephant. As he was still very young, the call was more like that of a baby. The call resembled something like a baby, not like an elephant. He called out. I thought somebody was hurting him. The immediate thought came in the mind of the author was that somebody was hurting his baby elephant. So immediately what he did was, someone was hurting him. So I came down from my tree and ran very fast to the edge of the forest where I had left him, but he was not there. Immediately the narrator climbed down the tree and went to the edge of the forest where he had kept this elephant to stand. But he couldn't find him there. I looked all over, but I could not find him. He searched everywhere there, but he couldn't find the elephant. I went near the edge of the water. Finally, he went to the edge of the water and he saw a black something struggling above its surface. When he reached at the bank of the river, he saw in the clean water there some black thing was struggling at the surface of the water. Then it rose higher and it was the trunk of my elephant. Then he realized that it was nothing but the trunk of his elephant, Kari. He realized it. I thought he was drowning. The immediate thought came in his mind was that his elephant was drowning in the river. He went back to the river for bathing and he lost control and he was drowning. That was the first thought came in the narrator's mind. I was helpless because I could not jump into the water. The narrator felt that he was helpless, but because he couldn't jump into the water and save his elephant and save the 400 pounds of him, since he was much higher than I. This elephant was then weighing around 400 pounds. He felt helpless. He couldn't do anything to save the drowning elephant, he thought. But I saw his back rise above the water. But immediately after that, he saw the back part of the elephant was coming out of the water. The moment he caught my eyes, he began to trumpet. Then when he came out of the water, he saw the narrator and he started trumpeting. He started squealing and struggled up to the shore. Immediately he came up to the shore. He struggled up to the shore. Then still trumpeting. Still he did not stop that trumpeting. He pushed me into the water and I fell into the stream. I saw a boy lying flat on the bottom of the river. Then what Kari did was he pushed the narrator into the water and the narrator fell into the stream. Stream means the flowing water. And when he went down in the water, he saw a boy lying on the bottom of the river, lying flat on the bottom of the river. He had not altogether touched the bottom. The drowning boy was not altogether touched the bottom, but he was somewhat afloat. He was afloat in the water. He was floating. He did not touch completely the bottom of the river. He was a little bit afloat and going down. I came to the surface of the water to take my breath. As the elephant pushed him into the water, he was breathless. So he came upward to take a breath. And there Kari was standing. Then immediately he saw Kari was just behind him. His feet planted in the sandbank. His feet he still planted strongly in the sandbank and his trunk stretched out like a hand waiting for mine. Then he stretched out his trunk, the long nose, to get hold of, to save the life of the narrator. He held out his trunk. I dived down again and pulled the body of the drowning boy to the surface. Then immediately he dived down. I dived down again and then again he dived down and pulled the body of the drowning boy to the surface. But not being a good swimmer, I could not swim ashore. But the narrator was not a good swimmer and he could not swim with the drowning boy to the shore. He felt difficulty to take this boy out of the flowing water. And the slow current was already dragging me down. Even though the current, the flow of the water was slow, it had the power to take them down, drag them down. It began to drag both the narrator and the drowning boy downward. Seeing us drift by in the current, The current of the tree, the flow of the tree, take them down. When Kari saw this, Kari, who was usually slow and ponderous. Usually he was slow and very ponderous in nature, doing everything very slowly, in a lazy manner and in a very ponderous manner, after suddenly darted down. But this time he suddenly darted down. He came down like a hawk, like a prey bird. He came down and came halfway into the water. Around halfway he came down into the water, where I saw him stretch out his trunk again. Where the narrator saw he stretched out his trunk, I raised up my hand to catch it. So he raised his hand to catch the trunk of the baby elephant, but it slipped. But unfortunately, what happened was he couldn't catch hold of the trunk. He slipped. I found myself going under the water again. Then he realized that he was again going down and down the water. But this time I found that the water was not very deep. But the water was not very deep, which means that the depth at that part of the river was not very high, is not very high. So I sank to the bottom of the river. So what the narrator did was he went down the bottom of the river and doubled my feet under me. Then he bent downward to take a jump. He doubled his feet down and then suddenly kicked the river bed and so shot upwards like an arrow. So he applied this technique of bending down his feet and made a jump. Then he made a jump at the riverbed. Then he shot upwards like an arrow, in spite of the fact that I was holding the drowning boy with my hand. Then he never let loose the drowning boy. He got hold of him. He never left the boy in the water. He got hold of him as my body rose above the water. When he made that jump from the bottom, from the bed of the river, when he rose up and when he came up the water, I felt a lasso around my neck. Lasso means a long rope-like thing came around his neck. He felt terrified. He was terrified, really. He was frightened. He felt that a lasso around his neck. He was frightened. This frightened me. Actually, that frightened him. He scared of it. I thought some water animal was going to swallow me. The real thought came in his mind was that some water animal began to swallow him. Swallow means to eat him whole. To eat as a whole. He thought like that. I heard Kari squealing, but instead of that, what I heard was he heard the squealing sound of Kari, and I knew it was his trunk about my neck. Then immediately he realized that it was not any sea animal. It was the trunk of his dear elephant, his baby elephant Kari. He pulled us both ashore. This baby elephant pulled both these children ashore, the narrator and the drowning boy. Thus he saved the life of the drowning boy. So this story tells us about the intimacy between humans and animals. Some animals, they show some sense in them. They are intelligent, they are humane, they are not animalistic in nature. Sometimes they are very polite and helpful for human beings. So the story tells us that we should keep these animals around us to at least keep the ecological balance of the earth. All these creatures have the same right to live on this earth. So that is the message the story wants to tell us. We should take care of these animals because these animals have also the sense to live and help even the humans. This is the first part of the story. For second part, you have to subscribe the channel and press the bell icon. Don't forget to thumbs up if you like the video. Thank you for watching till the end.